Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. This is Chaos Incorporated. We're going to be bringing you different videos on subjects around geopolitics, finance, cryptocurrencies, China, global macro events, what's going on in the economy. Mostly importantly, we're going to try to keep everybody up to date and as a community and try to unravel what exactly is going on in this world as we spin into different pretty rough scenarios that most of us have never seen, whether it's global pandemics, the global war across Europe, and which threatens to escalate across Europe and across the world. But we'll be covering all these kinds of topics so that are interesting. The video here today we're going to call is how China is taking over the Asia Pacific and how the United States is losing it. So I'm going to pour a drink here and let's get started. So most of you know that I'm recording this video here on a Friday night. Joe Biden about 3 days ago was in Asia Pacific. So Asia Pacific is obviously where all the manufacturing has moved, all the business. It is really Asia's century, and that's really led by China. But we have serious divisions by country in that region. So you look around the world, Africa really hasn't developed. South America is still a basket case, but they have bright spots. Europe is an old folks' home that is becoming socialist, and look at the top 100, 200 unicorn companies in the world. That's companies with $1 billion valuation. Maybe they have 5 or 10. It's really economically now they're shutting off their oil and gas to Europe. So I don't hold much hope for Europe. I think they're going to spin into full World War III here pretty soon, based off this Russia-Ukrainian conflict. However, so the subject today, though, we're going to talk about is Asia. So Asia, obviously, you've got China, 1.3.5 billion people, massive demographic crisis, but actually the world's global superpower. I don't want to get into all that. I've done all kinds of videos on how they're so economically dominant over the United States, despite what official GDP figures will tell you. I mean, I could give you one example. Oh, cheers. China makes more steel in 17 days than the United States makes all year. They are technically more advanced than us in artificial intelligence, quantum, mobile payments. E-commerce is 3 times the size of the United States. They're everybody's number one trade partner. And the United States now, our economy, we've been printing money for 30 years. And we just think you print money, and that's how you run the economy. And this has now evolved in the foreign policy establishment. And I'm going to get into it in this video on how that type of thinking is going to completely lose Asia Pacific. So when we look at Asia Pacific, imagine you've got China as kind of the big center country. You've got conflicts with India to its left, bad history with Japan to the right. South Korea is wary of it. They have a new pro-U.S. anti-China president installed. So America's working with the Quad. That's Japan, Australia, India, and the United States, trying to be a big four container or a blocking movement against the rise of China. I doubt it's going to work, but that's from a foreign policy establishment what they're trying to do. Now back to the subject of this video is what we're going to talk about is ASEAN. So ASEAN itself doesn't get so much press. It's kind of on the back burner, but it's 10 countries: Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar. You're talking about almost 700 million people in this economic bloc called ASEAN. The GDPs have grown pretty considerably over the years. The biggest one, Indonesia, at 4 trillion GDP. They've got a 273 million population. So these are some, it's a very big economic bloc we're talking about. And in response to the Quad, I mean, in response to most everything, China is expanding globally, expanding their relationships all over the world through the Belt and Road, just building power plants and roads and schools and construction sites. And the U.S. will go in and offer you a drone base. Okay, it's not even a competition at this point. So what Joe Biden's trip did We offered $150 million in assistance to the ASEAN countries in total. $150 million. In half of that, about 40% exactly, is allocated to providing U.S. coastal services, which means sending our warships around. That's 40% of the $150 million. The of the $150 million, $40 million in total will be used for infrastructure, but split against 10 countries. So that's $4 million per country. Does that sound like you're going to win allies? Yeah, here Indonesia, you've got 273 million people. Here's 4 million for construction of stuff. I mean, it's a joke. It is a joke. China, on the other hand, has offered billions of dollars. They put in a $6 billion railway in Laos. That's just one project. They have Belt and Road. There's 3 major trade pacts with ASEAN. U.S. isn't in one of them. So there's Belt and Road. There's the RCEP and the CPTPP. Long acronyms, you can Google them. But there's basically 3 trade pacts now that are running ASEAN. China's at the center of them all. U.S. is at the center of none. We have no tradable commodities or manufacturing to offer ASEAN anymore. China will offer everything. This is really a case of economic support, as in China, versus military support, the United States. The United States, I think we've been printing money for so long, for 30 to 40 years now, to where we just think you can print money, that's your economy. It's not how you develop societies. You can see this plain as day in Ukraine today. Ukraine has pre-war had 1/3 the GDP that Russia did. It's an economic basket case. It's known for stag parties and exporting people. Economically, it was a disaster. The United States has been heavily involved in Ukraine. Some would say even running it since 2014. And there's zero focus on economic development. Because in the United States, we don't even know how to do economic development anymore. Go take a look at Detroit. Go take a look at Baltimore. Take a look at any Rust Belt city. I mean, we've got 100,000 people now dying every year on drug overdoses. This is all a symptom of deindustrialization. I mentioned earlier in the video some of the stats. I mean, China, as I mentioned on China Steel, take a look at ocean-going sea container ships, right? These are the lifeblood that travel through the blood vessels of the global economy on the oceans, right? Everything's containerized and containerized shipping. United States has 1 commercial shipyard left. Okay, we built 10 ocean-going sea container ships last year. China built more than 1,000. So there's really no comparison. And until the United States goes back to square one and starts to rebuild its own economy with a real economy, not printing money, not giving more money to Wall Street banks so they can buy stocks with it, you have to do the hard work of building your own economy. And this is why we're going to lose Asia, because Japan and South Korea are still in our pocket. India wants to work with us because they see potentially a big export market for them. They're wary of China. China's on their border. They've got conflicts, on their borders with China. I think we'll keep those guys, but ASEAN is going to be key. And with a population of almost 700 million and all rising countries in terms of industrialization, that area will be key. But we are offering jokes and no solutions. We have no incentives at all to work with the United States. So we have no tradable goods. We can't offer you money. Hey, you want some warships to sail by once in a while? Sure, we'll do that. I mean, the U.S. Navy itself is downgrading over the next budget. By next year's budget, they're expected to go down about 25 ships. So they're going to go down from about around 400 ships to about 375 combat vessels. China's Navy is already 25% larger than the United States. It's going to be 50% larger in the next 5 to 10 years. So we won't even be able to offer military support in the future. It's not on the cards. So what that brings us to now is U.S. is really in tatters. I mean, economically, it's a basket case. Europe's in collapse. I mean, it's worse than the United States. The post-Soviet order is in tatters. The Russians will probably take most of the Ukraine. And we have to focus on that while we're losing Asia. We don't have we've got to rebuild the manufacturing. We've got to build companies again with focused on technology. So that's the case. As I mentioned, $150 million spread against 10 countries. That's the economic incentive for ASEAN to join the American orbit in trade economics and geopolitics. There's not a lot to go around, so it doesn't look good. So that's that's where I'll end the video. Well, I will mention Solomon Islands. That's in the area. Solomon Islands in China signed a deal. Australia's fuming. You know, Solomon Islands was used heavily in World War II. And they're sitting right on top of Australia. That's going to become eventually a Chinese military base. Australia's panicked. But once again, what do we offer Solomon Islands? They have so many unexploded bombs and mines from World War II we still haven't cleaned up. And China's going to come in there. Yeah, you want hospitals, you want schools, you want factories, you want industrial parks, you want bridges, you want a sports stadium, you got it. That's the new power. That's how the world will be decided. It's through economic development. It's not going to be all through hard military power. So the U.S. is going to have to wake up to that reality. So that's it for today. For today and for tonight. Have a good night, and I'll see you next video.